Uh, Dalet. And these are the halakas that you stated in the upper chamber of Kananya ben Kizkiah ben Gurion when they went up to visit him. They were counted and Beis Hillel, Beis Shammai numbered Beis Hillel, and they decreed 18 measures on that day. Beis Shammai says we may not soak ink, dyes, or vetch unless there is a sufficient time for them to become completely soaked while it is yet day, but Beis Hillel permits it. Beis Shammai says we may not place bundles of flax into the oven unless there is sufficient time for them to become heated while it is yet dry, nor may we place wool into the vat unless there is sufficient time for it to absorb the color. But Beis Hillel permits these acts. Beis Shammai says we may not spread snares for beasts, birds, or fish unless there is sufficient time to be captive while it is yet day, but Beis Hillel permits this.
Okay. So, more extensions of the same machlokes, but in a slightly different way. Beis Shammai omrim ein mochrin lenochri. You cannot sell on Erev Shabbos to the non-Jew. Ve'ein toanim imo, and you cannot load his animal with him. Ve'ein magbihin alav, and you cannot in magbihin alav. Wait, what's the difference between the two? Toanim is putting the load onto the donkey, and Magbihin alav putting a load onto the shoulders of the non-Jew himself. Right. Okay. So Ela Kadeshi Yagia Lamakom Karov. Unless it's early enough that the non-Jew would be able to reach another place before Shabbos comes in. Okay. Why? What's the concern? Because the onlookers might look at you and say, "Oh, this guy did business with the non-Jew on Shabbos, or he's doing work for you on Shabbos." Or so this is the concern of Beis Shammai. Um, he's worried. He's worried here not about the actual malacha. Up until now, he's been worried about, okay, the malacha is going to be done. The oven's going to dry out the flax, or the wool is going to absorb the dye on Shabbos. So that's actual malacha over here. Here, the concern is chashad, that people are going to look at you and say, "Oh, you're doing something that's really not cool." That you're getting this that this non-Jew is doing stuff for you on Shabbos. Which is an interesting thing, which it just strikes me now that right now, Beis Shammai, Amir al-Nochri is an Isser Derabanan.
Uh-huh.
And we're going to actually see in a coming Mishnah that Beis Shammai is actually quite okay with Derabanans that are going to that might continue on Shabbos. But let's carry on and see. So I'm interested now just to contrast the two. Beis Shammai omrim ein noslin oros la'abdan velo kalim lekoves nochri. You're not allowed to give skins for processing and or kalim, or in other words, your clothes to the non-Jewish launderer. Ele kadesh ye asumi be'od yom, unless he's got time to complete the work before Shabbos comes in. B'chulan Beis Hillel matirin im hashemesh. Beis Hillel say it's up to the non-Jew to do the work whenever he wants to. If he wants to do it now, if he wants to do it on Shabbos, if he wants to do it on Sunday, that's up to him. So you don't have to worry about what the non-Jew is going to do. Amar Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. So Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel is he's descended from Hillel. Never mind, he's from Beis Hillel. He's actually a literal descendant of Hillel. Nohagin hayu Beis Abba shehayu nosnin klei lavan lekoves nochri. He says, what is the practice in my own household is that they used to give the white clothes to the non-Jewish launderer shlosha yamim kodim l'Shabbos. They would be so strict that they wouldn't even give the launderer, less than 3 days before Shabbos, just to make sure that the work would be done before Shabbos. But this is one of these things where they were machmir on themselves, but they were makil on all Israel. So they actually kept the chumrah of Beis Shammai plus. I mean, Beis Shammai was okay even on Friday, as long as there's time for him to do it before. And it looks like the house of Shimon ben Gamliel was even more machmir than that.
Right.
Okay, but B'shavin elu ve'elu. This is the sentence I was alluding to earlier. Is that both Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai agree shetoanim koros beis habad ve'igulei hagas, that you're allowed to put the beams of the olive press, and igulei hagas is also the presser, uh, a chorus. Wait, no, it's basically a big weight that you put on the grapes that have already been pressed. So
Right.
like there's a normal way of pressing things, and then you have the extra way of pressing things out, but by putting extra pressure of a heavy beam or a stone or something that goes on top of them. So um, so what's the situation over here is that these things have already been pressed, and if you left them in the vat or the olive press, the oil would
Juices
probably
go
drip out
out.
anyway. So it's coming out by itself now because you've already started the process, and the liquid dripping out. What you're trying to just do is do it more efficiently. And even Beis Shammai is okay with you doing this on Erev Shabbos and just leaving the beam there for it to come out because it's already coming out. And as Kahati says over here, um, "Me'ein bazeh ela isur midivrei sofrim." All that you've only got an isur d'Rabbanan over here, and therefore they didn't make any gezerah on putting these beams or the stones on top of these things on Erev Shabbos. It's interesting that he's saying that the division over here is that okay, when
But
it comes to a Darabanan, we're not so worried about it. But this what we just said in Mishnah Zion um, is that is a Durabanan where Beis Shammai
yeah.
is Machmir, saying Amir Lenochri.
And you're not doing anything. The juice is going to come out anyway. So,
I can
I guess
see,
that's a limit.
and I can see perhaps the difference is that it is an the Isser Durabanan of of putting the beams on top. Right, that's where it's a malacha on Shabbos. That's and if you're doing it before Shabbos, we're not so worried about it. But the Isser Drabanan of Amir al-Nakhri, the Isser Drabanan of Amir al-Nakhri is even if you do it before Shabbos. That's the thing.
Mhm.
Um, that's even if you do it before Shabbos. But I still don't see how but if you want to be consistent with Beis Shammai's opinion, is that when you're talking about the doraisas, about the absorbing of the color in the wool or whatever, those are things where you did the action before, but it's continuing to happen on Shabbos. So if you did the action before and it continues to happen, Beis Shammai regards it as if you're making it continually happen.
It's the same thing with the beans
Like
and
the
the
same
olive
thing.
pressing.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to ask some questions about that. Okay.
I
That,
mean, the wool will dry will absorb the stuff and dry anyway on Shabbos, same as the liquid coming out. So, all
yeah,
right,
that's
question.
a fair point. Yeah.
Bakorum, Aleph Yud base, Aleph
Uh,
Yud, Yud, no Aleph Yud, the base Yud. Here, how is it like the koi? It is
Right.
Caleb
It says Kate,
No,
we're on Yud
right.
Aleph,
That's
so
the next
Kate
one.
with Ena
I do the
Shameh.
same thing every day. I put my hand on the left side to the right. How is it neither like a koi undomesticated animal nor like a cattle? It is forbidden on account of kalayim with both an undomesticated animal and with cattle. If one assigns to his son his undomesticated animals and his cattle, he is not assigned to him his koi. If he said, I am a Nazarite, and if this be an undomesticated animal or cattle, he is a Nazarite. In all other ways, it is like an undomesticated animal and a cattle and requires slaughtering like this and like that, and conveys carry on uncleanliness in a limb of a living being like this and like that. And how does one separate the Bikurim? When a man goes down into his field and sees a ripe fig, a ripe cluster of grapes, or a ripe pomegranate, he ties reed grass around it and says, let these be Bikurim. Reb Shimon says, nevertheless, he designates them again as Bikurim after they are plucked from the soil. How did they take up the Bikurim? All the cities of the Mamad gather in the city of the all the cities of the Mamad gather in the city of the Mamad and spend the night in the open place of the city. And they did not enter the houses. And to the early rising, the officer said, arise and let us go to Zion, to the house of our Lord our God. Okay. All right. Why do they make? Why do they make? I'm trying to say. I didn't read this part. Why do they make a thing about not? Um, oh, I got it. Okay, I got it. I got it. They didn't enter houses because they were afraid of becoming tummy from a corpse. Right. Okay. All right. Meister Shani. Challah. Aleph Hey. Dough, which was first sponge cake and in the end sponge cake, is exempt from challah. First dough and in the end sponge cake, first sponge cake and in the end dough is liable to challah, and so are kanufka cakes liable. If misa flour pays, Beit Shammai exempts, but Beit Hillel declares liable. The chalitza flour pays, Beit Shammai declares liable, but Beit Hillel exempts. The cakes of the thank offering and the wafers of the Nazareth, if they made them for himself, are exempt to sell on the market and are liable. If a baker made leaven to divide it up, it is liable to challah. If women gave to a baker to make it for them, to make them leaven, if there is not any of them in the sufficient measure, it's exempt from challah. Okay.
Okay.
Well, okay. And then we're done. Okay, Shavias. The Gimel Dalet. If one uses his field for a cattle fold, he must erect an enclosure that covers two sides. He pulls out three sides and leaves the middle one, which leaves him with a cattle fold of 4 beit sads. Rabbi Shimon ben Gimel says of 8 beit sads. If his entire field was 4 beit sads, he leaves part of it over for appearance sake, and he takes it out from the cattle fold and puts it in his field in the manner of those who bring out the manure. A man may not open a quarry in his field for the first time unless there are 3 layers which are 3 by 3 and 3 high and a total of 27 stones. If a wall has 10 stones, each a load for 10 men, they may be removed. The measurement of a wall is 10 handbreadths. Less than this, he cuts it and may level it to within not less than 1/10 handbreadth from the ground. When is this case? From his own, but from his neighbor he may remove whatever he wishes. When is this case? If he did not begin in the 6th year, but if he began in the 6th year, he may remove whatever he wishes. Okay. Yeah. And para. Okay, test Vav. Regarding Mekatas and Kasas ashes, one may not transport them across a river in a boat, nor may he float them on the surface of the water, nor may he stand on one side of the river and throw them to the other side, but he may cross the river with water up to his neck. One who is tahor for katos purposes may cross the river with an empty vessel that is tahor for katos in his hands and with unconsecrated water. Concerning valid ashes that became mixed with ashes from a stove, we follow the majority with regard to conveying tumah, but we may not consecrate mekatos with the mixture. Reb Eliezer says we can concentrate mekatos with all of the mixture. Regarding mekatos that became disqualified, it renders tummy someone who is tahor for truma through contact with his hands or his body, but with respect to someone who is tahor for katos, it renders him tummy neither through contact with his hands nor through contact with his body. Okay.
Is it
If
in
the
that case,
Mekatos becomes Tameh, he renders Tameh one who is Ta'ah for Truma through contact with his hands or his body. And with respect to someone who is Ta'ah for Katos, Katos it literally renders him Tameh through contact with his hands, but not through contact with his body. Okay. And Zvachim. Okay. Yud. Burnt offerings precede mincha offerings because they are in the category of blood offerings. A sin mincha offering precedes a voluntary mincha offering because it is brought for a sin. A burnt katos precedes a burnt ola, and so too with its consecration. All katos offerings granted in the Torah precede asham offerings, except for the asham offering of Mitzorah, because it is brought to make the Mitzorah fit. All asham offerings mentioned in the Torah must be in the 2nd year. It must be worth at least 2 silver shekels, except for the asham offering of a Nazir and the asham offering of a Mitzorah, which must be in their 1st year and need not be worth 2 silver shekels. Just as they precede one another in their offering, so they precede one another in their consumption. Between the shlomin offering of yesterday and the shlomin offering of today, that of yesterday takes precedence to the shlomin offering of yesterday, and a katos or asham offering of today. That of yesterday takes precedence, and these are the words of Reb Meir. But the commentator, the katos offering takes precedence because it is a most holy offering. Okay. We are Shabbos. Yud Gimel Hey. If one stipulated to give money to his son-in-law and subsequently reneged, she should sit until her hair turns white. Admin says she can say, had I stipulated for myself, I would sit until my hair turns white. Now that my father has stipulated for me, what can I do? Either marry me or divorce me, said Rabbi Gamil. I approve of Admin's view. If one contests the ownership of a field and he is signed on as a witness, Admin says he can say, the second one is amenable to me, the first one is more powerful than he. The sages, however, say that he has lost his right and he has made a boundary mark for another, he lost his right. If someone went overseas and his path to the field was lost, Admin says he may go with the shortest path. The comment, however, say he must buy a path even for 10,000 zuz or fly in the air. Okay.
Okay. That can.
Let me just see. Oh no, we have.
Alrighty.
All right,
Have a
terrific.
wonderful Shabbos
You
and
have a great Shabbos. Enjoy, and I will see you Sunday morning.
Hashem.